Okay. Hello, dear colleagues. My report is dedicated to grammaticalization and lexical expression of tropative from a typological perspective. If we try to define the word tropative, the broadest option would be like this. A derivation having a meaning x considers y to be z. We will call x a subject, y an object, and z a characteristic. It will probably be pleasant for you to hear that this term was introduced in Pierre Larcher's article about classical Arabic. It had a stricter sense, an affix constructing a verb to find z from the verb to be z. In this report, reverse having a meaning y is considered to be z, so that x is not a necessary element. And negative, those having a meaning x does not consider y to be z, or y is not considered to be z. Tropative constructions are also discussed. There are 4 criteria of tropativity. First one is grammatical. Tropative must be integrated into characteristic as a verb phrase. It's an original definition by Pierre Larcher. Second one is syntactical. Tropative constructs a triadic predicate T, X, Y, Z using one finite clause. Reverse tropative is a dyadic predicate T, Y, Z. Third one is semantical. Tropative is a statement X has an opinion that Y is Z, with all the elements specified. The last one is minimal or basic. Tropative is a conception of personal opinion. Constructions corresponding to some criterion correspond to the following ones automatically. Now let us consider 5 examples and check their correspondence to these criteria. 4 are from English and 1 is from Arabic. First one, Arabic root harama means to be prohibited, while istahrama means to consider to be prohibited. Second one, a clause, I find him smart. Third, a polypredicative construction, I think that he is smart. Fourth is a descriptive construction, he's probably smart. And the last one is a simple sentence, he is smart. Now let us check correspondence, and please look at the table. As you see, first one is tropative irrespective of the criterion, while the fifth one is not tropative, irrespective of the criterion. The rest depends on the criterion used. In this report, we will assume that they are tropative, but less tropative than the first. We will use degrees and classes of tropativity. But before that, I would like to denote the method. The most typical way to do typological research, especially involving many languages, is grammar descriptions analysis. But this method is unsuitable for tropative because it is rarely mentioned in grammar books. Thus, it is necessary to do elicitation, requesting translations from native speakers. For this research, a cross-section method was used. It involved translating only 4 sentences. Of course, it has some disadvantages. It does not allow to detect all means of expressing tropative in a language, does not allow to get negative data, involves a high risk of informant's mistake, but it does also have some significant advantages. It gives information in almost 100% cases, allows to process some poorly explored language, guarantees methodical uniformity, and it is also relatively easy for informants. All of this allows us to process vast numbers of languages. I personally managed to process 200 languages, but only 182 natural non-extinct languages influence typological conclusion. And now let us begin discussing natural models from the first degree ones, or grammaticalized. First degree models are those corresponding to all 4 criteria. It's example 1 from the table. You can see the citation. Languages possessing such models belong to the first tropativity class. Grammaticalized models can be classified according to two main parameters. Models that involve universal tropative grammeme for any adjective, noun, or stative verb are called strongly grammaticalized. A1, while models involving an affix applicable just to some stems are weakly grammaticalized, A-nil. Grammaticalized tropative models can be monosemic, B1, or polysemic, B-nil. All four combinations exist in different languages, and they were detected. For example, A1, B1 in Lakota. You can see two examples of tropative. A1, B-nil in Chukchi, A-nil, B1 in Turkish, A-nil, B-nil in Nanai. Second-degree models are those not corresponding to the grammatical criterion of tropativity, but corresponding to all the rest ones. It is example 2 from the table. They can be used in class 1 languages. Languages using these models, but lacking first-degree ones, belong to the second tropativity class. Such models can be classified according to a main parameter. They are either monosemic, like Ukrainian vajati, or polysemic. Polysemy types are highly different. They might involve counting, like in Russian, Latin, Persian, and Arabic, knowing, like, again, Persian, also Talish language, perception, like Greenlandic and Breton, speech, like Dolgan language, or possession, like Polish, English, Lithuanian, and so on. Third-degree models are those not corresponding to the syntactic criterion of tropativity, and therefore grammatical, but corresponding to both remaining ones. It is example 3 from the table. They can be used in class 1 or 2 languages. Languages using these models, but lacking more advanced ones, belong to the third tropativity class. Canonical example was detected in Kashubian. You can see it. But it's not essential at all for X to be a subject of a main clause. For example, in Tokpisin, it is an indirect object. Fourth-degree models are those not corresponding to the semantical criterion of tropativity, and therefore first two criteria, but corresponding to the last one. It is example 4 from the table. Such models can be used in class 1 to 3 languages. Languages using such models but lacking other ones belong to the fourth tropativity class. Example is from Hawaiian. Implicit models, like example 5 from the table, are those not corresponding even to the basic criterion of tropativity, and therefore not corresponding to other criteria. They can be used in tropative languages in the meaning of tropative, but Arunta, which is a single detected tropative-less language, lacks any explicit model. For example, my informant answers, Re akilte means he is knowledgeable. Something either there is or isn't. Consider the shade of gray from English. Besides the class, there are two other important characteristics of a tropative model. The first one is correlation between direct and reverse constructions. If reverse construction is a result of the grammatical passivization or intransitivization of a direct one, the model is direct reverse symmetric. Otherwise, it's direct reverse asymmetric. Majority of systems are direct reverse symmetric. For example, in English, in Persian, in Russian. Asymmetry occurs if direct construction is non-syntactical, like in North Russian Romani, or if there are no reverse constructions and direct ones with dummy subjects are used instead of them. like in Silesian. However, in some languages, both types are syntactical but independent, and one of them is Zulu. The last important characteristic is correlation between positive and negative constructions. If negative construction is a result of the grammatical negation of a positive one, the model is positive-negative symmetric. Otherwise, it's positive-negative asymmetric. Almost all of the systems are symmetric. The single exception is Aymara, which uses two independent types of reverse constructions. You can see it on the slide. Now let us discuss constructed models. Constructed languages, or conlangs, are rarely mentioned in typologic papers, and there are some reasons for avoiding them. Firstly, conlangs are usually created by one person, which might set or change the rules arbitrarily, and even on the spot after being asked. Moreover, native language of informants might influence their answer. But it has some important advantages. It would help to compare natural and constructed models and reveal which models are chosen as the easiest or the most difficult. This might be useful both for typologists and for language creators. Finally, it would increase awareness of constructed language issues. Probably the main reason for ignoring conlangs is just a typological tradition. I selected Esperanto by Ludwig Zamenhof as an example of a progressive language, one that is aimed to be used by the whole world. Thus, easy models should have been used. From the slide, you can see that Esperanto belongs to the second tropativity class. A monosemic verb is used. Its model is direct reverse and positive-negative symmetric. It might mean that such a system was considered the easiest, at least by Zamenhof. On the other hand, I selected Klingon by Mark Okrand as an example of a regressive language, one that was aimed to be used in a fiction film by an alien race. Thus, difficult models should have been used. From the slide, you can see that Klingon tropative model is positive-negative symmetric by direct reverse asymmetric. Direct constructions with unknown subject are used instead of reverse ones. It is doubtful whether Klingon belongs to the second or the third tropativity class, because a is usually regarded as a subordinate clause marker, but tropative verb is transitive and polysemic. Han means to believe, while a can be regarded as a topic marker. It might mean that such a system was considered the most difficult by Okrand. Emoji by Shigetaka Kurita is the most controversial aspect of my research. It has never been included in a linguistic paper. Besides the fact that this is a conlang, it has its own problems, lack of grammar and usage standards. However, it would also be reasonable to process it. Emoji shares its aim with Esperanto, and that means that their models should have much in common. Lack of grammar means that the most iconical constructions should have been selected. Finally, it would increase awareness of linguistic issues of emoji. From the slide, you can see that emoji has much in common with Esperanto in terms of tropative. They belong to the second tropativity class. Their constructions are monosemic. Models are positive-negative symmetric. The only difference is that emoji tropative system is direct reverse asymmetric. Independent models are used. Reverse tropative uses verbal symbol in the form of a star, which means to be famous. It might mean that such a system is not less easy and understandable than the one of Esperanto. To conclude, tropative is an almost universal category. The only tropative-less language is Arento. 4 degrees of tropativity exist, and the most common is second one, syntactical analytical. Tropative models of first and second degree can be monosemic or polysemic. First degree models can also be strongly or weakly grammaticalized. Reverse tropative is usually a grammatical passivization of a direct one, but there are some exceptions of 3 types. Negative tropative is almost always a grammatical negation of a positive one, with single exception of Aymara. Second degree monosemic positive negative symmetric models must be considered the easiest, while direct reverse symmetry is not essential. On the other hand, direct reverse asymmetric models without reverse constructions must be considered unnatural. As a result of this research, that has taken 2 years, High School of Economics Tropative database was established. You can see its address on a slide. Thank you very much for your attention.